welcome back. I was about to say, I see some familiar faces and some new ones, so thank you very much, first of all, for letting me have a few moments here this evening. Oh, excuse me. So my name is Sarah Check. I'm the health educator with the Cass County Health Department. I do a lot of things throughout the county, but one of the things that is really, really fun and really rewarding is working on community gardens. About this time last year, I think it was actually in June or July, I came in front of the board and said, hey, what do you think of a community garden in Garden City? Got some support. Over the past year, I've been talking with some residents, with some businesses, and there's some interest in a community garden. And I came here tonight to ask if maybe we might be able to use some city property for that. First and foremost, the whole why are community gardens even important? Well, first of all, they help, of course, feed communities. That should be a given. But they also help save money to the city in social programs. You give people a way to get food. They're possibly not needing as many social programs. Help promote healthier communities. When people have access to healthier foods, they can actually eat healthier foods. Eating healthier foods, having an active lifestyle, stems those chronic diseases, long-term health, and all of that. It promotes civic participation and pride. I know that in Harrisonville, we use the Harrisonville High School Senior Day of Service. We use them to build new beds and to clean out beds and do weeding and all of that, and it's been really, really rewarding to have some of them come back from college or when they've left town and have come back over the holidays to see me up in the garden and be like, yeah, you know, this is my legacy. This is something that I left here. This is something that I did. And so they come back home to see the garden, and they encourage their friends and family members that are still in the area to participate in it. So it's a really fantastic way to use some space. Helps preserve cultural heritage, whether that is looking at heirloom varieties of fruits and vegetables and keeping those original genetic lines going, or it's growing fruits and vegetables that your family has culturally used in cooking and food preparation that you might not be able to find at Walmart or Price Chopper. And one of the things that I really, really enjoy about community gardens is it provides children a place to learn. Between the math that goes into, okay, I have a 4x8 raised garden bed. If I split this up into square feet to do square foot gardening, how many squares is that? Getting kids out there and working with their hands and learning how seeds germinate and grow and food produces, how bees are incredibly important to our ecosystem, and how planting flowers, wildflowers, not only around the garden but also within your own box will help cross-pollinate and get you a better yield. But more importantly, community gardens would be important for Garden City because Garden City is technically considered a food desert. There's nowhere in town where you can get fresh produce. You might be able to go into Dollar General and get some canned vegetables, but you're not going to find low sodium. You might be able to find frozen vegetables, but you're probably not going to find them without some kind of sauce already in the bag, and the steam in the bag. And that's a problem because 8% of Garden City residents are living without access to a vehicle. So if they can't drive the 10 miles into Harrisonville, then they have zero access to fresh produce. 12% of Garden City families are living below the poverty level. And of those families, 34% of those families have children under the age of 5. I don't have to tell you how important good nutrition is for small children and their ability to learn and grow and thrive and be contributing members of the community. 23% of Garden City residents receive food stamps or SNAP benefits. Shows that a quarter of your residents that there is food insecurity already there. And 47% of the students at Sherwood are on free or reduced lunch. Now I understand Sherwood does not, that is not only Garden City students, but the majority of them are. And all these numbers came from the Missouri Department of Elementary and Secondary Education and the American Community Survey of the U.S. Census. So, the Cass County Health Department has already had a lot of success with community gardens. Got a couple things to pass out for you here. So, in Harrisonville, we have what I like to call a true community garden. Individuals rent out boxes, they can grow what they want, they can do what they want with what they grow. They can keep it, they can donate it, they can can it, they can do what they will. The first year, this is the third season with the Harrisonville Community Garden. The first year we had 23 beds built. We had probably 85% of those beds reserved that first year, which was a great showing. The next year we doubled the size of the community garden to 46 beds. Last year every single one of those beds was reserved and used by a member of the community. This year we didn't add any more and we almost have all of the beds taken up. I blame the poor weather for the reason why we don't have 100% yet, but we're getting really, really close. And so there you've kind of got our little brochure and a little visual representation of what we've been able to do in Harrisonville. In Archie, this will be Archie's second year, and theirs is a community outreach garden, so it's a little bit different. In Archie, their garden is located on the school property. It is tended to by the FFA students. They need year-round projects. Food insecure families in Archie need food year-round, so it was a really great partnership. The students grow the produce and donate it all to the Ministerial Alliance, which gets it out to the food insecure families in the community. So there are a couple different ways that community gardens can be done. There's no right way or wrong way. Pretty much what I wanted to show there. Now, the area that I'm asking the city to consider letting us use is North 4th Street in Date. Basically the backside of this block. There's a wonderful centralized, flat, beautiful area right across the street from the old hotel that would make an ideal place for a community garden. It is centrally located, which means it's kind of a focal point here right off of Main Street, which means a lot of visibility for the community. It is within walking distance of many residences' homes. And with the proximity to City Hall and the fire station and the police station, it decreases the likelihood of vandalism, whereas if it were somewhere a little more back and remote, then you might have more issues with that. The Cass County Health Department are what we provide for these community gardens that we start. Our role is to help in the planning process, so doing the measuring, figuring out what supplies are needed. We provide the resources to build the garden, so the lumber, the soil, the mulch, the tools, the seeds, the signs, all of that can be provided by us. We promote the garden and garden activities by putting out press releases, organizing kickoff events, things of that nature, and offering our guidance and garnering community support. I'd also like to add in there leveraging resources and calling on favors. I do a lot of that. And another thing, and guidance with gardener agreements and safety policies. Now, you have your own counsel, but the health department does not. So, we had to do a little bit of trial and error, and we would like to see some of the community gardener agreement and the health and safety policy that we put together, kind of give you an idea that we know that how important it is to make sure that the property owners, whether that's the city or an organization like in Harrisonville, the Historical Society actually owns the lot where our community garden is, to hold them not liable for any injuries that may occur on the property. Things that we like.
What is the agreement again? Did you just mention?
Oh.
Does it help on the ownership?
The plot of land is actually owned by the Cass County Historical Society. And so we partnered up for the garden in Harrisonville.
Okay, and the liability belongs to, who is the liability if anything does happen?
That is in our,
Okay.
yeah.
And would it be property owner?
What's that?
Property owner?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Who owns that?
City?
The city?
So what we're asking for is the ability to use that little plot of land that would be absolutely perfect for this. The one nice thing is that if we are given the permission to use that, now this one's not as pretty as my other handouts because I had to throw this together. This is what that lot could look like. What we're asking for is the ability to build raised garden beds there. Possibly access to water. I know there's a building right next to it. There are other buildings here on this block, so there's water access points at some point. So to be able to maybe plumb in just a yard hydrant, which is all we have in Harrisonville. We just have just one little yard hydrant. Stick a lock on it, it's fine. Ideally, we would really love to see the city have some skin in the game, and we would really love for the water to be provided. I know that's asking a lot. However, consider, in Harrisonville, like I said, we have 46 beds. They were all used last year. We averaged $15 a month in water from April to October. That's 7 months. Just over $100 for the entire growing season. We offset that in Harrisonville by charging $5 per box per year rent. The $5, like I said, puts a little skin in the game for the folks that are renting those boxes, but it is not so much money that it becomes a barrier to that access. And with 46 beds, that was $230, and we use that for paying for the water and paying for any maintenance incidentals.
Okay, this is very interesting. I guess some of my questions are, who is the garden committee?
In Harrisonville or here?
Well, who would be the garden committee here? Because if I would ask Morris to be on the garden committee, he'd probably fire me. Who would you do, how do you designate who the garden committee is? Do you?
Volunteers?
What's that?
It's volunteers.
It would ideally be volunteers. Leadership in the city would be amazing, but yeah, city volunteers.
Okay, and that's after you put your information out?
For about 6 years, I was a volunteer restructuring of the inner city school. And the community, the Parks Department is the one that ran the gardening area, and it was highly successful, and it was really good. And thanks to community response here, we do the thing of having people coming down from the city that brings about it averages more than 40,000 pounds of food, and about 80% of it is fresh vegetable food.
That's great.
And everybody is excited about it, and they are appreciative of it. We do this at our church.
And is it ever enough?
Never.
Never.
My question is to our attorney. Do you see any reason why we should or should not do this?
Well, I think the city ought to check with its liability insurance carrier, but I don't know that the liability insurance carrier is, I think it'd be covered, frankly. And I don't think there would be any extra premium that the insurance company would charge, but I don't know that until you'd ask the insurance.
We probably need to call them. I think it's a great idea. I think it's a great idea. I'm not a gardener. I love gardens and flowers, but they don't love me. Well, they like my house, but they don't last very long. But, I think it's a great idea. But if we can get our liability company to sign off on that, then I think, could you make that call?
Can.
Okay, and then I hate to ask you to come back.
Yeah,
But if you can come back like next month, and, because I think it's a good idea.
We participated, actually it was, our church, Bethel Assembly, and also, Pastor Bates' church. And we, used a portion of our property at the church, quite a large one. And, a couple problems we had was, one person being responsible and making it work. And the other was, about the time it was time to harvest, suddenly the food started disappearing. And so I think a fence around this, your picture doesn't show a fence, but I think really it would be really helpful. Now the gardening that we did up in the inner city, it had a fence around it, and it was a controlled area, and it was, and like you say, huge pride came from it. And so I think it can be successful, but I'd recommend you put a fence around this thing.
Fencing is expensive.
Yeah, I know it sounds expensive, but I think it's a problem that needs to be addressed, because people who come in and, and I've seen this type of thing on a smaller basis all over downtown Kansas City, growing corn and all kinds of stuff. And
We have all
people,
kinds of stuff growing in Harrisonville too.
yeah, people leave it alone, but not here,
Okay.
You just have to see how it went the first year.
Well, and I think we'd have to get the volunteers to,
Yeah.
we'd have to get the people to volunteer to do it, because I know that there are probably a lot of people that would love to do that.
I would donate the water bill personally, as long as I didn't have to volunteer.
Well, that
It
is
would do me any good
perfectly
volunteer.
acceptable.
Well, it's an item for discussion, so let us get a hold of our liability company and see what they say, then we can go from there. And then we can send out some feelers about who would be interested in helping. And of course, I know it's every person supposedly taking care of his own box. So, and I think the $5 is very reasonable, so. And where does the $5 go? Back to you all, or?
It would be whoever would be paying that bill. So for Harrisonville, we pay, the health department pays the bill, because we are really hands-on there, mainly because our garden is 3 blocks away from our office. So yeah, that $5 goes to us, but if say, individuals were to sign up at City Hall for their garden plots, and the city was the one who was footing the bill, then that $5 would go to the city.
Okay.
Whoever's footing the bill.
Any questions?
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, I really
I like
appreciate
your
it.
visuals too.
I try.
May I have your phone number?
Yes, it is 380-8429.
Okay. All right,
Thank you very much.
Thank you, and thank you again for pronouncing my name correctly. Thank you, sir, I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you.
Make sure and give us a holler if
Okay,
you
the
want to set up
next-
another meeting.
Order of is old business, and it's an update on Stephen Harris's concern over his water bill, and it is my understanding that Mr. Harris has called City Hall and made arrangements to,
He's
set it
gonna
up on
come
the
in
payment
and make
plan. So,
arrangements, yes.
he's gonna come in to make arrangements for a
that's
payment
it.
plan, so we don't, I think that's been resolved. Okay, we have council bills and resolutions, and the first bill is, let's see here. We have a street light at Spruce and Short Street. Oh, have I done this? Okay, I haven't done that.
The bills, were to,
Okay, oh, this right here, okay. Yeah, council bills and resolutions, so. We've got papers on this. Okay, so I'm going to entertain a motion to be read by title only, bill number 2017-655. Do I have a motion and a second? I need a motion to read this by title only.
I'll make that motion.
Okay, I have a motion, do I have a second?
Second it.
Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, the motion is carried. Okay, this is bill number 2017-655 and ordinance number 2017-655, an ordinance to authorize the installation of a light for nighttime illumination at the intersection of Spruce and Short Streets. Now, I've read the bill, number 2017-655 by title only. Do I have a motion and a second for a second reading of the bill? Do you have a second?
Second.
Okay, so, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, so the motion is carried. I will read it again. An ordinance to authorize the installation of a light for nighttime illumination at the intersection of Spruce and Short Streets. Having read Bill 2017-655 two times by title only, do I have a motion and a second for passage of Bill number 2017-655?
I'll make the motion.
Okay, do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? So our motion is passed, and I direct Bill number 2017-655 be placed in the ordinance books of Garden City as ordinance 2017-655. And that
That's correct.
is that. All right. Now, the city spoke to a representative of the Missouri Municipal League, which will be, that is MML, and it was suggested that we do not need an ordinance concerning waived fees for sunshine request forms. So, the proposed ordinance should be removed from the agenda because this has already been done, that we have taken out the waived fees, so. And then, the next is rescinding ordinance 2014-637. This is an ordinance regarding filling a vacancy in elective offices of the city. And the response from the Missouri Municipal League was that there's already a state statute, 79-280, and it has the process set to fill a vacancy in an elected office. So, I make a motion to rescind the ordinance 2014-637.
Has this been advertised? As far as filling the vacancy?
That's what, that we were gonna try to pass this tonight, is that what you mean?
Yes.
Yeah, it was posted on the public.
Do we have an ordinance? Do I have a motion to rescind the ordinance
I'll make
2014?
the motion.
We have a motion, do we have a second?
I'll make the motion.
It's been
Second.
Okay, we have a
Thank
second.
you.
Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? So the motion to rescind the ordinance 2014-637 has been passed. Okay, and then on other business, it's a discussion of Brome Acres. So, do we need to discuss that?
Well, unless you wanna try to explain,
Mr. Weedman, do you feel comfortable explaining this discussion on Brome Acres, or should we do? It's up to you.
Well, I was asked last week about the application for building permit, and for, the subdivision is actually called Brome Hills. And Mr. McCullough applied for a building permit, and I was asked to pass judgment as to whether the building application for building permit was proper according to the city ordinance, and I rendered the opinion, no, it is not. And it would take a long time to list the many, many things that are deficient in the application, but I can do so, but there are many, many things deficient about the application for building permit. And the street situation is of primary concern, I believe, and the street to Brome Hills does not in any way comply with the city's ordinance, and there is no record that the city has ever accepted the street to Brome Hills. There is, it was developed originally by the Burtons, and there was a subdivision agreement entered into in writing between the developer and in December of '03, between the developer and the city, that called for the city to accept the streets in Brome Hills when such improvements are built to city standards. And I think everyone knows that has not been done. And so there has not been any development in this subdivision since the initial home was built, which the driveway entrance is off of Sycamore Grove Road. So the street situation in Brome Hills has really never been addressed. And so because of the economy and other things, that subdivision has just sat there without lots being sold. And so the application was submitted by Mr. McCullough, and I'm not here to be critical of Mr. McCullough, but it's just totally deficient in its application. It doesn't list the lots. The lot is, the application for building permit is not signed by the owner, which the application requires. It was signed by Mr. McCullough. There is an elevation sketch that shows a home. There's no survey submitted, which is required by the application. It's right there in a checklist to the applicant for a building permit. The Department of Natural Resources in '03 issued a permit for this subdivision. Whenever you're going to discharge, whether it be septic tanks or whenever you have stormwater drainage issues, the Department of Natural Resources issues a permit. Well, that permit for this subdivision expired in '07. So whenever you're going to disturb trees, roots, whenever you're going to grade and change the natural flow of water, you're supposed to let the state approve that. And the state once approved the bare ground out there, the farmland for Brome Hills, but it expired in '07. There is no information submitted on septic system, potty ponds, or anything with regard to the application for building permit on this house that has been started out there. There's a very basic sketch plan that was given to the city when question was raised with Mr. McCullough. A hand-drawn sketch which basically would show a house on one lot, and it shows an outbuilding, garage, shed, or barn on another lot. There is no indication where the driveways to these structures are located and where those driveways intersect with the street, which has not been accepted. When you look at the original stormwater drainage plan done in '03, it calls for stormwater drainage culverts or pipes under the road. I don't believe that has been done. And the stormwater drainage plan talks about how the lots in this subdivision would drain and where they drain. And I'm not an engineer able to determine whether any of that proposed work on the lots has been done. You know, the plat that was, the final plat that was accepted in January of '04 doesn't show a cul-de-sac, and yet there's a cul-de-sac actually built out there at the end of the roadway. The application doesn't show lots, and you know, I talked to Mr. McCullough, and he said he didn't think they were building on more than one lot. Well, now I think he does believe they're building on two lots. And so there's an outbuilding on one lot that has a separate driveway, and then a home is proposed to be built on the adjoining lot, and it has a separate driveway. Plans for the subdivision, the city was requiring a fire plug, a hydrant, those sort of things with regard to the water improvements that are out there. It's my understanding there's no fire plug, there's no hydrant out there in the subdivision, which would be fire safety issues. And so, you know, the city, it's my understanding, has not issued a residential building permit since the year '08. And so, you don't have a lot of experience to fall back on. Any sort of recent experience as to what the city should be requiring or asking of the developer or the builder or the homeowner when they come in asking for a building permit. The application as presented is wholly deficient. So that's my comments. I can address any questions you all may have.
You've told Mr. McCullough about everything that you just told us?
No, I have not. I wrote a letter to Mr. McCullough, like, hold off, stop. Your application doesn't meet a variety of city standards, and I outlined some things, and I said, you need to comply with our ordinance, and I named the ordinance. And I said, you gotta present documents in compliance with the checklist, which is in black and white on the application. And then Bonnie and Judy Williams have also talked to Mr. McCullough, I think asking him to try and comply with the checklist, and it still has not been complied with. Mr. McCullough's sort of amended application for permit just says things like, city has it, city has it. Well, the city doesn't have all these things, and at least from the file I have been shown. And city staff so that there wouldn't be confusion as to Mr. McCullough talking to one council person, or talking to Morris, or talking to Urschel, or somebody else. The city staff told Mr. McCullough, well, call the city attorney and I'll talk to him. And I talked to Mr. McCullough on the phone at length, and then he was told, and he said he was gonna submit all these documents. Well, he didn't. He submitted some very partial documents, and I believe the city staff has told Mr. McCullough, well, call the attorney and he'll go over it with you and tell you exactly, but Mr. McCullough has not placed any such call to me. So, I don't know what sort of standoff may be occurring. I don't know. And I have not heard from the homeowner,
Well,
or the lot owner, at this
Chuck, you
point.
might not be aware, but he is Jerry Wallander.
Are you
his wife
Mr.
is here.
Wallander?
Yes.
Okay. Well, I sent you a copy of the letter I sent to Mr. McCullough last week. And so I don't think anybody here is wanting to stop the building, they just wanna make sure that it meets some of the city requirements. And it is very deficient in what it provides. And so, I'm addressing my comments to you all as the
Right.
council.
Well, my thinking is, I really want him to be able to get on the road and start building, but I also know that we have requirements that need to be met. And I don't think that our requirements are any different from any other city.
No, they're far less.
What I'm
They're
saying is Mr. McCullough really does
They're not
know.
near as restrictive as
Right.
other cities.
I mean, he knows how to meet those requirements, because he is a builder and he does that. So I guess we're just waiting on him to, yes. I mean, if you wanna address Mr. Wallander.
He's under the consumption that he's gonna allow it to happen. When he submitted the permit, none of this was brought up. It'd been nice to know this 2 months ago, or when we submitted it.
Right.
Not in the middle of our building process. We have a permit that was signed, and then all of a sudden they put a stop build on us. I bought both lots, so they can be combined, however you wanna do it. We just need to get, the weather's been, we had no idea he wasn't gonna allow us to build until last week when he sent us a letter.
But it was approved 2 months ago?
It was approved. It'd been nice to know it a week after we put the permit in instead of after I've got everything dug out.
What was it?
It was approved
Yeah, we got a permit.
from here?
They cashed the check, everything.
That's true. That
Randy
is true.
Jones.
The application process provides that the applicant provide
The city
the
filled
permit
it out.
fee,
That's
and
true.
it was provided.
And
That is true.
it
The
was signed.
application says this application is going to be reviewed. There has not been a building permit per se issued. There has not been a signature from the application. We have the original application here in the city file, and there's not been any signature approval or date of such approval of any permit.
Didn't we receive a permit?
I believe-
Well, it depends. He can answer that. I can answer it, but it might not be.
I'm not-
correct, so.
I'm not privy to what discussions may have been held between Mr. McCullough, the applicant, and Randy Jones at the time was the city clerk. I'm certain there were discussions between Mr. Jones and Mr. McCullough about the permit. I'm not privy to those discussions.
At the time, it obviously was accepted because you guys came out and installed a driveway whistle for us
It,
at your guys' expense.
if my understanding's, correct me if I'm wrong, Morris, my understanding is it doesn't have to be accepted to put in a culvert.
I mean, I'm just in a bind. We'll do whatever you want
Because-
us to do.
I was told by the previous administrator to go put a horn in, and that's what I did.
So what was the approval for that we paid for?
the approval
The
that.
permit.
What did he buy?
Well, the question is whether it was approved. The permit application was accompanied by a check that I assume is the appropriate amount, is based upon the cost of the proposed dwelling. I know there wasn't anything submitted with regard to, there weren't any plans or specs or anything submitted with regard to the barn or outbuilding
It's
that
a
was
shop.
proposed to build.
We've got the
I spent
dimensions.
times with Mr. McCullough today, and we drove around, looked at things, looked at plot plans and this and that. It appears to me that it's just barely beginning to go through the process. It is far from a process being finished.
The next week or so is gonna be a big step if we can get it lifted so we can start building. I mean, we've been,
That's what he indicated, but you'd be very disappointed if we didn't solve these problems, because we're all open for some problems if we don't get it done properly and right.
And I really want you guys to get this, I really wanna get this on the road, really. That's what I told Mr. McCullough. He bills all the time, so I'm thinking in a couple of days, he could probably, I don't
Well,
know, but in a quick time, he could.
You know, a residence built, under your ordinance, a residence in the city of Garden City is supposed to have access to a public street. Well, right now, there's not an accepted street, and so there would be a residence being built without access to a public street. Now,
don't
there
you
was
have
some
to-
discussion with Mr. McCullough, well, maybe this should be a private road. And Mr. McCullough gave some sort of mixed comments about that. And, if it was gonna be a private road, the council would need to take action in order to vary from the city ordinance to allow a private street as opposed to a public street. And if it's private, then the city doesn't have obligations to maintain it. They don't have obligations to provide streetlights. They don't have obligations to do other routine things.
Doesn't the area have to be 80% built before you have to provide the street? And there
No.
obviously is a street, you guys put signs on it. If you want to put a stop sign on it, we've been paying taxes on the land to the city.
The cul-de-sac
Jerry
that is
McCullough
there
is.
was sketched in, it identified, and I asked Mr. McCullough about it. He says this is there's the development of the next adjacent piece of property, and it's all, shown to extend on past that little circle that's on there, but that doesn't really identify measurements or anything that shows a cul-de-sac. It's just a circle in the middle of the street.
There's like a 50-foot easement from that end of that cul-de-sac going to the south. He has a drawing of that.
Well, I didn't recognize it on
It's just on the drawing of that.
Is it a pin drawing or is it a schematic drawing from an engineer? That's the
Probably
problem.
not.
Half that property is not.
I mean, I'll do whatever it takes to make this work. I mean,
What-
obviously, we're
what-
gonna have to. We already-
First of all, the application that you explained to me had to be applied for by the property owner, is that correct?
Yes.
So the property owner actually needs to apply for that and sign it. If he is given X, Y, and Z to present to the city, then we should be able to proceed, correct?
Well,
Aside from the street.
okay.
Aside from the street.
Yes, if the checklist on the building permit application is complied with.
There's two checklists.
Another thing, we've already paid for one permit. It was like 11.
Yeah.
You don't have to
That's
pay for
correct.
another one.
That's correct.
Yeah.
Well,
You're not
it
putting up with
depends,
water.
it depends whether he's required to do two permits, or whether he's
Two lots.
allowed to put,
Can-
Well,
That's why
because
he's-
but it's not a significant cost. It's just $50 on the other lot for an
So we
outbuilding.
can combine them into one lot. If if
But
we
he's
need
gonna
to-
have to
We're
give
not
a-
even asking that.
Well, no, let's not get into combining your lots at this stage, cause it would have to technically go before the city council to approve a change to the plat.
Okay.
Jerry, why don't you get a copy of what the documents you need to present?
Cause I don't wanna wait another month, we
No.
definitely wanna get you guys on the road. I mean, I think it's just, Mr. McCullough, because he's a builder, he really
Being
knows.
stubborn.
Yeah, well, I told him he was kind of a grouchy old man, I told him that today, so, I think that's what it is, and since he's a builder, he knows exactly what he needs to do, and he just isn't doing it, and I don't know what to say.
What he did was he came in with a pin, like a pin drawing, and on your plot map, where it's plotted, should show both driveway entrances to both buildings.
They're actually one driveway, it just makes a circle.
Okay. Then what
But
should
it'd have
happen
two
is, the
entrances.
buildings need to be shown where they're gonna set on that. Then he needs to put in there where your septic or lagoon system
See,
will
we
be.
can't, we gotta move forward with getting perk testing, and that's one of the last things that you do. We had that scheduled, but we got shut down. That was coming pretty quick.
Well, we aren't stopping you from getting a perk test, we're encouraging you and asking it and requiring it.
Well, we're not gonna
And does
spend any
either
more
one
money
of
unless
you
I can.
have time to stop by? I would be glad, I probably won't explain it all. I'll have council help, but I'll be glad to give you a building permit, the drawings, and tell you what we have told Jerry is required.
I have a quick question. So if we get it all approved, we follow your rules, what's the deal with the street? I don't wanna go through the process of getting this building permit nonsense done if the street's not approved. You guys just said
It
something
won't,
about the
that's
street.
It'll have to be a private drive.
Well,
Yeah, it's too
don't say
small
that, that's
to
for
be-
consideration, and it would have to be,
So we're gonna be all right to
the
build there, even
subdivision
though it's a street
developer
issue?
would have to
No, that's
come in
fine.
and request something like it being a private street, and the council would have to act on that. But
So we need to get the street approved before the house. Because if the street's not gonna get approved, then there's no reason for us to go through the building permit.
That's catch 22.
Well-
The normal procedure was when we used to adopt those streets, when Jerry built across town here, we didn't accept that street till the last house on that street was finished. Because of the gravel trucks, the concrete trucks, they were gonna re-tear up the street that he put in. So what he did was he put a base, he put a thin layer of concrete, and he put his curbing in. When he was finished with that part of that subdivision, he asked Herschel or whoever, we would go out and tell him, okay, you need to fix this pothole, this, and bring it up to code. Once he done that, then the street got accepted back into the city. But the street didn't get accepted till that subdivision was finished because of what was gonna happen with all the heavy traffic going over that, and it wasn't fair to the city to have to recoup that when he was still building. So that's how we accepted those streets, was at the very end of that, and he'll have to bring that street up to code for us to accept it.
But what about Sycamore? You had mentioned Sycamore. I thought you mentioned Sycamore being that's the public road, meaning it's the private.
it is.
It's city.
That's where.
Yeah.
But the one house that's been built in the subdivision, that's lot one of Brome Hills, is the entrance, the driveway's off of Sycamore Grove. It's not off that internal street.
Morris, is Sycamore Grove ours and county?
That's our,
Actually, this, our interest is to protect you guys, if you wanna know the bottom line.
2 months ago, it would have been nice.
I mean, I'm,
Well,
we're,
if you have to, if it's kind of a working process.
but we got a permit, we paid the permit fees, we were, said, let's go build, and that's all we were told. And now I got a letter from the attorney says we're done building, so we kinda been waiting out the weather, it's been kind of a problem. I'd really like to get a house built.
Right.
So whatever
And
it's gonna
I-
take to
I
get this
agree with
done.
you. Yeah, get Mr. McCullough to do, I said, you have not done anything I asked.
I mean, we'll take care of this if we, I mean,
It would probably be better if you did.
You think so?
And I would suggest that maybe, I tried to talk with Kyle, but I haven't been able to get him to call me, but
Okay.
it might be more of an advantage in understanding more of what is being asked on that permit. Because that drawing needs to be, it's got to show the offsets of where things are gonna go and the possibilities of what you're gonna have. So, yeah, I would suggest that you find out from the county what you gotta put in. As far as a septic or a lagoon, or
We're
give us
working
some
on it. I mean,
options.
That's the next step, we just,
Okay, so I'm thinking after talking with Bonnie, if you guys could come in and talk with Bonnie, it might be a quicker process.
But I will use our council.
Yes,
help
I mean,
because
we'll-
I'm not stepping into it
Right.
by myself.
and what do you want us to do to get this going?
Want to start, well, yeah, that's what he's been wanting Jerry to do, so it's not just a quick 1, 2, 3. He probably would have to call, like he's been wanting Jerry to know a definite answer, am I correct?
The application and the ordinance sets forth the requirements to issue a building permit. And so, the requirements in the checklist need to be complied with. I don't
Our
have
only
a
problem
problem
is, we were issued a permit. We went for it and it was issued, that's our only problem. And then all of a sudden,